afternoon. It's always a very special time when the residents and friends of Rolling Green Village gather to hear the melodies of beautiful music by the RGV Chorale. The chorale has an outstanding history with residents who are present today and those who are now our guardian angels. We have been fortunate to have talented singers, accompanists, directors, and members of the chorale over the numerous years of the chorale's history. Today, we honor the retiring director, George Cribb, for his service to this group, and we wish him well, and he will be able to spend more leisure time. George has chosen a poem most appropriate for today's program. He asked that I might recite the poem for you, and as you see in your program, the title is I Am Music. Now, let me explain. As I recite the poem, imagine that when I say the word I, and there are quite a number of them there, it is indeed the essence of music speaking to each of us, every one of us, every day. Servant and master am I, servant of those dead and master of those living. Through me, spirits immortal speak the message that makes the world weep and laugh and wonder and worship. I tell the story of love, the story of hate, the story that saves and the story that damns. I am the incense upon which prayers float to heaven. I am the smoke which palls over the field of battle, where men lie dying with me on their lips. I'm close to the marriage altar, and when the graves open, I stand nearby. I call the wanderer home. I rescue the soul from the depths. I open the lips of lovers, and through me the dead whisper to the living. One I serve as all I serve, and the king I make my slave as easily as I subject his slave. I speak through the birds of the air, the insects of the field, the crash of water on rock-ribbed shores, the sighing of wind in the trees, and I am even heard by the soul that knows me in the clatter of wheels on city streets. I know no brother, yet all men are my brothers. I am the father of the best that is in them, and they are fathers of the best that is in me. I am of them, and they are of me. For I am the instrument of God.
Work last song is A Long Way to Tipperary. Sing it with gusto.
We have a bit of a surprise for you. You may be done with us, but we're not done with you. You know, when God breathed into us, He gave the seed of music into each one of our hearts. And through your work and your direction, you have touched the seed not only of the great chorale, but of each one of us in the music that you've brought to and through us, and we resonate with you. From my heart and from RGV, we just want to say thank you for all you have done to keep the music alive in each of us. Great.
Bob said we're not done with you. We're not. You know that interviewing that we did? Well, how many of you remember Paul Harvey? Remember him? he would tell the rest of the story and have some interesting tidbits about different people. And we kind of thought that maybe that would be a good idea to tell the rest of the story about Dr. George Cribb. So you'll be sorry. No, not really. First of all, did you know that little George Cribb grew up in Horry County, South Carolina? Horry? Horry. Southern pronunciation. Horry County, which is near, I can say it better, Myrtle Beach. However, it was a small rural farm, and as he's told the chorale many times, he grew up plowing the field before they had tractors and stuff like that, and he was always at the south end of a northbound mule. But enough of that. When his mom developed a heart condition when he was little, he was the youngest of 7 children, by the way, and his mom developed a heart condition when he was young, and the older kids got to go out and help Dad. And you got to stay home and learn a lot of things from his mom. And some of the things I think we might know about. Pat?
His mom was a good cook. It was the 1930s, and rural farms like theirs didn't have electricity, so she had to cook on a wood stove. Baking was pretty tricky because judging the exact temperature of the oven wasn't easy. According to George, he would watch his mom open the oven door and then stick her hand inside to see if the temperature was too hot or too cold. He says she always got it right, but maybe an occasional blister.
And there's more. I heard that George's mother also taught him how to sew during those early years. She was an expert quilter. Later on in his life, George mastered the art of quilting himself, and he made actually about 12 quilts, which he gave away as gifts. But he saved just a few to keep him warm on the cold RGV nights.
Yes, ma'am. I hear he even made himself a pair of pajamas not long ago. George, you just might get some orders in the near future because I think they're looking for you.
Say, George, I bet your sewing ability came in mighty handy when you served in the Navy during World War II. You probably had lots of buttons to sew on and then had to mend them likewise.
We know something else about Dr. Cribb. He was valedictorian of his high school senior class in Florence, South Carolina. We always knew he was a smart fella.
As you can tell, George has shared a few tidbits of his life, and you thought we weren't paying attention. Right? Family, faith, and music are the most important parts, and always have been, of George's life. He met his beloved Barbara when a friend introduced them. She was a beautiful Yankee from New Hampshire, but he was a handsome Southern gentleman sailor. Anyway, he also speaks with great pride about his 2 sons, Robert and David, and 2 daughters-in-law who he loves just as much. Where's Robert? Ah! Robert! And he's incredibly proud of his 3 grandsons and 2 granddaughters, and if you ask him, he'll tell you why. It may be a while, but he'll tell you. He'll tell you. Dan, where are you?
Right here.
Behind me.
Just as Sue mentioned, that his faith was important to George. His faith in God has seen him through life's joys and some of life's sorrows. In fact, he feels strongly that he was led to Rolling Green Village. It was the right place at the right time for both him and for Barbara. And now he loves relaxing in the comfort and the restorative power of the lake. As chaplain, I've watched George Cribb. He's not only been a good friend and a good leader of the chorale, but I've seen the way that his faith has shown up as he took care of his wife for these many years as she had to be part of the health care. And George, your life still speaks to all of us today.
Here's something else I bet you didn't know. George uses a lot of tricks he learned to maintain his emotion and equilibrium. When he can't get to sleep, George doesn't try to do what most of us do, and that's count sheep. Instead, he repeats all the states and all the capitals in alphabetical order until he falls asleep.
Yes, and if that doesn't work, he goes through them all again. But guess what? This time he does them backwards. Let's see, I don't think I could do that. Could any of you?
You want to try that? I couldn't even figure which was the last state in the alphabet. I had to look it up on the internet. Yeah, valedictorian, let's see, memorizing whiz, what a gifted man. The powers that be at Gardner-Webb University in Boiling Springs, North Carolina, not here, Boiling Springs, North Carolina, just east of Charlotte, undoubtedly recognized early on that they had gotten a treasure in Dr. George Cribb.
Gardner-Webb University didn't even have a music program when George arrived on the scene. Very soon afterward, though, they named George the chairman of the brand new music department, where he served for the remainder of his 23 years. Barbara, a gifted artist, also taught at Gardner-Webb in the Department of Education.
George often tells us that one of his favorite things to do is read. In fact, he has actually recorded every book he has read since he has moved to Rolling Green Village, and he figures he has read close to 2,000 books since he moved here.
George learned to play the piano when he was in 6th grade. His parents had a small upright piano in their little farm home, and they encouraged his music appreciation. In college music class, he even learned how to play the oboe and the viola too. But he doesn't admit that to many folks. He is a very talented musician.
We have learned a lot of his secrets, but I'm sure he may have more that he'd be willing to share with you. Music has been such an important part of George's life. In fact, you know what? He's lately discovered music on YouTube. I don't know how many hours a day you spend on that, George, but I know it's quite a few. It refreshes his soul, and it's a good thing. Well, that, my friends, is the rest of the story. Oh, there's one more thing that I think kind of summarizes up what George is all about. Another story that he told me, when he was teaching, he had a particularly gifted young lady who was a wonderful gifted pianist, and he encouraged her to give a concert, and he invited all the students to come, so they were in the auditorium, and he watched as the students came in, and he's a good observer. George is a really wonderful observing person, and he observed this tall, lanky young fellow come in, just thrilled to be at this concert, you could tell. He wasn't looking too happy. Anyway, he settled himself down and slouched into a chair, his legs kind of hanging over the chair, ready to put up with the concert. And the young lady started playing. And as she was playing the piano, George looked over at this young man and was surprised that he saw all of a sudden this guy who was sitting back in his chair was leaning forward and just kind of looking and seemed to be actually listening to the music. And the concert went on and she finished, and he glanced over again, and there was this young man standing up, clapping, leading the applause for the young lady. Music can change hearts, can change people, and that's what George is about.
And I want to say this, that the young lady who gave, or the member of the faculty, who gave that recital that night is here this afternoon. Carolyn Billings, stand up. I don't know even if she knew that this had happened, but it was a revelation. The power of music is immeasurable. If you haven't read it, read a little quote from Martin Luther that's at the end of your book. Martin Luther has written many things about music. He felt music should be there. But please read that and take it note. Thank you, sir.
Boy, you know, there are not always coincidences, there's God incidents. There were two of them just tonight between your son and yeah, wow. Okay, threw me for a loop. On behalf of the choir, on behalf of the choir members, past, present, and future, but Marcia, Francis, the staff, everybody from Rolling Green.
Former member of the choir.
Former members, yay. Thank you, George, for being you and for adding so much to our appreciation of music and to the Rolling Green experience. And as a small token from the chorale, we have something for you. It's a picture of the chorale that you can hang on your wall when you're missing us. When you're missing us, we want you to turn on your YouTube. When you're missing us, we want you to turn on the YouTube to the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. We want you to pull out your baton, stand in front of the picture, and direct the best performance ever.